everyone, welcome back to the Bookmore Show. It's Stuart Bell here, and today joined by Charles. I was just reading the background. I know you as Chuck. Chuck,
Yes,
welcome to the show.
Chuck is great. Yeah. Chuck works.
It's one of those things, as I was looking at the screen, the background there, I kind of saw the word and read the word instead of the word that was in my head, which
Yes,
is always a problem on the podcast.
That happens.
We know each other from a little bit from before you started writing a book. We had a couple of conversations before then. Obviously, we were able to help you go through the process, and now that's wrapping up. What I really thought would be a great opportunity would be to share your story with people. So kind of the business that you're in, it's not a unique business in the sense of there are other people doing similar things, but I think your approach is pretty unique. So I think that's going to be quite interesting, both for the listeners and also, if not specifically about the subject, more about them as business owners thinking about their unique approach, because I think oftentimes we tend to think of things have always been talked about in the past, or other people are talking about this, so what do I have to say that's unique? And your perspective is pretty unique. So with that being said, why don't we start off with a background and share with everyone kind of who you are and the business that you're in?
Okay, great. Well, thanks. Saying hello from sunny South Texas, post-Christmas 2023. Loving it, having some time off and spending time with family. And we spend time with family, we get thinking about, what's the future look like? So a lot of what I do with people is try to, if you can't describe your future self, you won't do a very good job of goal setting, whether that be financially, whether it be, what you're doing for a living. And so I think that's the major, framework is sort of that vision of who you want to become or what you want to become as a family or in your career or whatever. And so I particularly drilled down on the financial part of it, but of course that also involves for many a career or business development. And so we I do some coaching with small business owners, and then I show them how to use the tools and techniques we do on the private banking side. But just a little bit of quick history. So I'm a little bit further down the road of life. I'm what would be traditionally known as retirement age, but that ain't going to happen. Not only just financially, I like a nice lifestyle. So to do that, you have to have cash flowing assets. You have to have something going on. I have a number of businesses that keep me busy at the level that I want to be, but I didn't get here overnight. And so to tell you that I knew how all this was going to map out, no, I didn't know it was going to turn out this way. And the Lord has opened a lot of doors and provided provision and zeal for new things for me personally. So I think no matter what you do, no matter what business you're in, you've really got to take a self-assessment first. Who am I? What are my skills and gifts? What makes me tick? And, I think a lot of people get burned out of that. I want to be passionate about what I do. Well, you can be passionate about most anything if you can get the focus around it and you start to align your God-given gifts, your talents from education or from skill building or whatever. I mean, a good, excited plumber would be a great thing to have, right? When the guy comes to your house, if he's dressed up in a three-piece suit and he's got a very clean wrench in his hand, you might look at him and say, I don't know if this guy's quite aligning himself with his trade, but if a very courteous guy that maybe protects your wife's carpet from, dirt and is well cleaned and has a uniform with a name on it, that might be a good idea for the plumber coming to your house. The same thing with anything. That's how we present. It's how we come at it. So the book I wrote was a real supplement to the work that I'd already been doing. And I was started marketing back to your business owner and your book writer focus for the theme of the podcast. What I found is that I needed to market to a slimmer, more focused market channel, right? I needed to very identify, for the lack of a better term, my avatar, right? Who was I really trying to get to? And once I did that, my revenue went up 5x immediately in the first year. And the book was just a way to introduce people. I give it away a lot. I have a PDF copy I give away. And it sets the context, because what I do with private family banking, it's not an open and shut, it's a customized fit for every person. And the ideas are counterintuitive. They don't just jump off the page. So back to you, Stuart. I hope that was a good entree for where we wanted to go today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it sets that scene, the idea of being specific in the target market so that you know who you're talking to and can talk to them in a way that kind of aligns and uses the right examples and talks about comes at it from the right positioning, both in terms of where they want to go and where they are in their journey currently. So I think the idea of picking that single target market, although it seems like scarcity and you excluding some people to begin with, if you think about it from a campaign perspective, from a marketing campaign perspective, it's not that you turn away other people if they knock on the door, or other people who identify themselves as interested. But in terms of you having 100 units of energy a month to do outreach to a specific group, tailoring that 100 units of energy is far more effective than a scattergun approach of trying to be everything to everyone.
Absolutely. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned there the ideas of private family banking is perhaps something that people have heard of, but the customized solutions for each person are very individualized. And I think that's similar. It's a similar conversation that we have with people as they think about writing a book for their audience. Well, my solutions, it's not one size fits all thing. Every person is different. But at some level, there is a commonality. So how did you go about picking the right elements to kind of do that initial engagement with people? Obviously, the end solution is individual, but there is that commonality at an information level.
It's very interesting. That's a great question. I would parallel or make an analogy of this too. I used to own a VRBO property, vacation rental by owner, back in the day before VRBO and all the internet and Airbnbs are what they are today. This is 20 some years ago. And so I did a lot of marketing. And what happened in that scenario, I will align to what I'm doing today with private family banking. We hit the market just right post 9/11. The people wanted to rally as families. And so I had a very large place on a river. It was a beautiful spot, waterfall out front, and the park for the kids next door was idyllic. But what hit, the place was so large that an individual couple or maybe a couple with one or two children probably wouldn't rent it. So we needed big groups. So what we found that multifamilies would come and rent our place for a week. They'd get away. It was off the grid, if you will, kind of speak off the internet. I mean, we had power, but the internet was terrible, which people loved because they wanted to detach, So I align what I'm doing with private family banking with the time has come now post-COVID, the money situation, the banking failures, the economy, do I do Bitcoin? Do I do this? What do I do with my cash? Is the dollar going to be digitized? Is the dollar going to fall as the reserve currency of the world? On and on. So I didn't strike out to drum up more fear, but I knew fear is, the fear of failure or the hope of gain are two of the motivating factors for anything in life. And people are fearful, they're concerned, they're a bit confused. And so I think what I brought to it is a discussion about, hey, let's talk about you and your family. So I do have clients ranging from 18 years old all the way to 75, but the core group of my clients are probably young couples with a couple of children on up, from maybe the late 20s to maybe mid 40s. That's sort of the prime area. And these are people that are thinking family. They're thinking multi-generational. How do I pass wealth on? How am I going to set my children up for success? So it just really hit a chord. And I came out with that starting last April. So it's been less than a year to where I started to really market, and then I wrote the book and got it published, I think, in May or probably June. And it's just been a great supplement to pushing the message of multi-generational thinking and saving instead of spending and going into more and more consumer debt. And we address those things too. We help people get out of debt faster. So I kind of use the debt snowball technique, a little variation on it, though, a more powerful one, I would say. And we also meet people right where they are. They're getting ready for retirement, or they're concerned about losing, because you figure out the math is kind of easy when you think about it. If you have a 401k, by the way, the government created the tax problem and then they created the solution with tax qualified plans, right? It's really kind of interesting the way that works. But nonetheless, when you put money in a tax protected or tax deferred plan, eventually you're going to pay the piper. Plus, you're subjecting that money to market volatility. And we think the market's probably going to take a big turn here, maybe depending on the election, probably as well. Either way, maybe. And not to speak politics, but it certainly is a fact in the marketplace. But what we say is that let's get you some protection and let's get you a guaranteed win, a base platform where you always win and you're in control of your cash and you get some bonuses like dividends and things like that, and you get the money, we call the money multiplier effect. So that in a 401k, that volatility, if you lose 40%, which a lot of people did during COVID or the '08 crash, it takes 100% improvement to get that just back to zero.
Right.
And you're not going to get a 10 or 15% return year after year in the stock market unless you're an insider and you're hoping not to go to jail, I guess. But
so that's the interesting point, that bridge from things that people know and have some degree of understanding and comfort around. A lot of people are probably well aware of the idea of getting out of consumer debt and how expensive that is. They might be aware of the snowball ideas. They might be aware of their various retirement opportunities. So bridging that into the concern that people have got around an increasing awareness of things aren't the same anymore that they were in our generation. It's a great way of starting that conversation into something that's ultimately somewhat more complicated or requires some support, like private family banking. But
and I would say back to your other, right before the other question that you asked, is what it is about starting a conversation. If I could have any pointers to the people in your crowd, if you will, it's quit marketing and start a conversation. And make an offering. Sales comes before marketing. If you don't make an offer to somebody, you're not giving them any, you're just giving them more noise, right? People have so much stuff coming at them. And so my target market, I was able, through just a situation of how I knew these people and how to market to them through other channels or sell to them, I put forth a proposition in my ads. And my email box my calendar gets booked out. I mean, I have 20 to 25 appointments. I have a great close rate. Even the person that's in the most difficult situation, I'd write an article every week or more. I get it out on Instagram, and my daughter does all my social media, thank God, because I have no clue how to do that. But if you can get somebody to help you with social media, you write the content, but don't worry about knowing it all. And don't try to be all things to all people. I guess that's the key message.
It's starting the conversation. We refer to the books as conversational starting books as a kind of a difference from traditional books. And I talk a lot about the product of the book not being a book sale, but the product is a conversation with someone who's likely to become a client. Because for all of us listening here, that's the real difference maker. We're not authors. We're not going to we're not even really looking for speaking careers for the most part. It's introducing the idea to someone who's most likely to become a client at some point further down the track. So that conversation starting element is something that we hammer home with people all the time.
Well, and me, like many other people, have always talked about writing a book, right? And even, I did my doctoral work. I got all but dissertation. So I'm a doctor, ABD, all but dissertation. And the reason is you get stuck, you get writer's cramp. You can't think of something you're excited enough about to write, a book on. And so for me, this book was not only very natural, but your process was so facilitated that and I think you talk about it in that other podcast. How do you keep it going? How do you set achievable goals? Well, you know what? Don't you have to do that with your business? So just apply that good discipline, and it's just another piece of your work. But I can't say enough about, people just, it is a credibility thing. Not to say your book should be well written. I think it should, if you're using it to educate people on what you're offering, you have to do the due diligence, you have to do the hard work. But getting it out there is so key, and getting it in people's hands. I find that. Plus, I put a lot of my story about my life in there. And again, I'm in the classical above retirement age bracket, but I'm not a classical common kind of guy. I'm still popping it out, man. I'm more energized now. I just turned 70. I am more energized now than I was 10 years ago. And it's because of focus. It's because of being excited and helping people. It's a ministry. It's about reaching the core of somebody. And even if you're only making a small profit, it's so exciting to know that you help somebody. I think if you do that and you get away from your, beeline to, wanting to 3 vacations to Aruba and just do the work, maybe those vacations will come, maybe they won't, but you're going to get more out of your life, and you won't have to sell. Your enthusiasm, your love for people, and the desire to close a gap. I mean, I guess that's the way I made. I was a consultant for 20 years, freelancing, and did a lot of work with clients, CEOs all over the country in the healthcare space. But I never went in with a brochure. I always looked at those people and got them to tell me what they were struggling with. The
Right.
old find the pain and then scratch the itch or whatever, And so you giving a mono of information is really not very effective. That's back to the conversation.
Yeah. And the passion that you bring to it is the same whether we start off with the plumber example or whether you're a vet. My brother's getting married in January. His wife is a surgical vet. He's a yacht broker. I can talk all day long about creating books. My wife's a kindergarten teacher. She can talk all day long about early childhood education and the approach that Waldorf takes, the schools that she works in. All of us are in business for ourselves. We specifically don't have traditional jobs because we are passionate about our subject. And if we can share that one piece of information that really helps someone, whether or not we get paid for it, I think the majority of us are feeling good because we're just, as you say, out there helping people. And a book is a great way of starting that conversation in a non-threatening way with a very clear call to action and lead to an easy next step.
I think another thing, Stuart, too, and you know this, the real power in that conversational and relationship building, right? You're building a relationship. You're trying to build trust early on. Without trust, you really got nothing. So that one guy told me there's three things. They want to trust you. They want to know that you're an expert. And they want to know, what if you're bringing in another company like I do to actually do the product, they want to trust that company. So all of those are trust related, but that doesn't happen. So when you start talking to people, I think what you have to do is not only set them at ease, but use the power of questions. And that could be my next book. I read a book years ago when I was consulting called The Question Behind the Question. I don't even remember who the author was, but it was a powerful idea that, you ask a question, you need to think through what is behind your question because you're trying to get to something. And when people start asking you questions, you also think that too. But just the power of asking a person to articulate, where are you today? What are your hopes and dreams? What if you were to solve one or two problems? What would those look like? What would those be? Tell me a little bit about you. Now, if you go too fast and you go too close, you go too deep, people are going to back off. And,
Right.
It's just human nature, right? They're not going to, you can't get into the deep, dark secrets of people's lives overnight. But when you're dealing with their finances, that's a touchy area to begin with. And so you got to build that relationship through conversation.
And like you say, it's positioning it at the right level at the right time, understanding where you're using the book in the funnel, what the call to action is the next step, what I sometimes refer to it as, I'm sure I heard this from someone else, but relationship capital. Like you need to ask the questions that are balanced against the level of relationship that you've got. I think particularly, as you said, in your industry where there is a lot of baggage and sensitivity around finances anyway, going in too hard, too deep is either going to make people feel uncomfortable or threatened or that they've done something wrong. So if you can keep that conversation going until they're at this point of know, like, and trusting you enough to be able to dive into those deeper parts, it really is a continuum.
And it's interesting. I've had clients, again, some of it seems to be magical. I mean, you never know, right? But you get a client coming in and within 10 minutes, they're telling you their life story. Well, the best thing you can do is shut up and listen, right? And, give some body language. I used to Zoom a lot. Zoom is so powerful, or whatever mechanism, video conferencing. But, if somebody to turn over $150,000 to you based on 2 meetings on Zoom, man, that's a pretty powerful message that, you've done a good job of gaining their trust and explaining the mechanism and then showing them the pathway. And I get that, at least once a month, a contract, if you will, an arrangement at that level or more. Right. And so it's very, very important. And again, I try to, another thing is language, right? Not the language of finance. If I tell you, well, we're going to arbitrage this rate and then, the net present value of futuristic, yada, 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 yada. Well, you've lost them on square one. And sometimes many of us are too close to our own work to understand the decoding that's necessary. So back to you.
That's such a great point. And it comes back to this conversational start and not making an assumption that either people know everything that we could possibly tell them, or just because they've heard it before, that it's actually sunk in and it makes a difference. I was saying to someone a couple of weeks ago on a show that in my previous corporate life, I used to work for the Financial Services Authority in the UK. So we would go out, I was on the IT side, not on the regulation side, but we would go out and do presentations in London to workplace, it was like employee education side of things. And around finance particularly, although someone pointed out the doctors are the same, around finance particularly, that use of like in-house language and just throwing it out there because we have to deal with it day to day, we just don't even think about it. But the people receiving that, the words mean nothing. So if you can bring people along on the journey using language that is familiar and doesn't sound daunting or scary, or make them feel like they're well, stupid for want of a better word, for not understanding it, which is so far from the truth. Yeah, I really think it's about building that rapport and starting a conversation in a way that helps them. One point that I wanted to ask you, were talking about running ads and making sure that you specifically ask for a next step. Those ads that then lead to appointments, are they social media channels or are they print channels? And are they more asking people to schedule a meeting, or are they related to the book?
Yeah. So what I do, I run ads on very specific podcasts and YouTube channels. I've done my social media is just reels and stuff that go out on Instagram, and I get some draw. I've done other podcasts like this. I did one with iHeartRadio that gets me some traction. That's broadcast nationally. And all of those, again, for the small entrepreneur, they're basically quote unquote free. I mean, it's just your time.
Right.
People don't realize how much you and other people like me that run a podcast are looking for content, right? They're
Right.
screaming for content. So they're not going to charge you. Maybe some will, but my ads are running, they're paid ads. They're running on YouTube and very specific podcasts that address that audience that I'm targeting. And I get now about 20% will book directly to my calendar off the ad, which is powerful.
Right.
So what I do, I grab that calendar invite and immediately send them a read ahead, because I've got to have the read ahead so that we get a jump start on that Zoom call. So the schedule is to schedule a Zoom call. I send them a read ahead. If they send me an email in my ads, I have a link to a free book. They'll go out. Sometimes they get the book. Sometimes they just go out and look at my website, but I'll know they've been in there and I get their email. I've got mechanisms in place to get their email. Then I'll get back to them. And about 30 or 40% of those will book a meeting. And then I've got people that will call me. So I put my phone number out there a number of times. One of my great, most opportunistic opportunities. One of my a huge deal that I have in the work right now came from a phone call a guy gave me when I was on holiday in northern Maine, barely in cell phone range. And this guy calls me and we're still having a dialogue. It's too much to go into right now. And I got an NDA, so I can't say too much, but it's a big deal. And that came from one ad, from one place, and one phone call. And it's just, you just never know, and then I get people who are just struggling and, guy with 3 kids and he's 32 and he doesn't have any money. But yet, he rang up all this credit card debt. We can help them too. So I have a very wide range and I take all comers. I trust that this will all work out. I have, volume is helpful. And the more calls I take, the more volume. So back to your question, I get people, the offer is, book a call or call me. I give them the ad copy I wrote, and it's rich with language that hits people where they are. And I seem to that gets me lots of traction. So, but I'm in about 4 or 5 podcasts and a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
My ad spend ranges per month, so many dollars a month.
Yeah. And what you said in that answer, the fact that you never know the opportunities to be out there across multiple channels, and even if you're hitting the same people on a different day, there's that saying, you never stand in the same river twice. It's really the fact of presenting multiple opportunities to be out there in the understanding that you can never know exactly which day is going to be right for the person listening. But if you're there on the day that is right for them, then that's where the opportunity is to take it to the next step.
Absolutely.
I've got a copy of the book title up here.
Yeah, there you go. Protect Your Money Now. Yep.
And I love the hat as well. So keep on with the branding.
That's right.
You mentioned when we were talking about the audience that you were looking to dial in, if you had to pick that single target audience, and it's the people who have got some awareness that they need to do something, they might not know what they need to do, but there's all of these messages that they're getting from out there. So the subheading of the book talks about protecting from upcoming financial meltdowns or banking meltdowns. The audience who comes to you, how educated are they in terms of the solutions versus how interested are they in the problems? They've got an awareness that they need to do something different.
Great question. They come to me knowing more about the problem than they do my solution, our solution. And that's rightly so, because we're not mainstream, we're countercultural, counterintuitive, but they grab on quickly because I have a method. I use physical movements. I have some graphics that I just share a lot of screen, but I don't throw a lot of numbers at them. They got to grasp a concept, but they come knowing that what they've done hasn't worked. Number two, they know that if they got their money tied up in a 401k or a 403b or an IRA or even a Roth, they're going to pay taxes on the gains eventually. In our system, if you go by our rules, if you will, how we train you, you're going to grow this tax-free for the rest of your life. That's a huge advantage. People don't understand the decimating character of taxation on wealth. And so you can pass this along tax-free to your heirs as well. But so they come knowing what didn't work. And so they're really already peaked to learn something new. And so that's why I use a very educational step-by-step process.
I think that's a key point for anyone listening as well. This idea that people have some understanding of some solutions, but not the full picture, and almost certainly not specifically the way that you do it. But they've got quite a wide, it's the problems out there that are triggering them into taking some step, because the inertia that everyone's got of not making a change or just letting time go by, that's a powerful thing to overcome. So I think starting that conversation by highlighting what the problems are and presenting the idea of the solution really helps start that conversation and move it forwards.
Right. And I think that two things happen. Most of the people I get, not only do they understand what they weren't doing or that what they didn't work is really more precisely it, but they're hesitant to try something new and they don't want to get desperate. The other people have already gone the full route of getting desperate and lost more money. And so those are the ones that say, please help me, because they're just fed up. Because what happens is people feel they're getting taken advantage of, or their fear of missing out, FOMO, or whatever they do, or my neighbor did this, or this guy told me that. At the end of the day, it doesn't work out for them. They're looking for sanity. They're looking for something structured and something that's more certain. Certainty, a lack of uncertainty, you'll never close a sale when you have lack of uncertainty, because that's another key driver. You've got to get certainty in that person's mind, because that's what they're trying to overcome. They're so uncertain because they've been ripped off through, if you will, not ripped off, but certainly affected by the market swings.
Yeah. And once that fear comes in, like I said, the option of doing nothing is the easier option for most people. No one gets sacked for buying IBM or whatever that ad used to be. It's never their fault if they do nothing and the circumstances change around them. But also, they're not going to get the benefits of that if you just sit there and hope that something's going to change.
Absolutely.
The time always goes quick on these shows. I want to make sure that we give people a chance to follow up and find out more about you and the book and what you're doing. So if people are watching along on video, your background's fantastic because it's got the contact details straight away. But for those listening, where's a good place to follow up and find out more about you?
Yeah, the best thing to do is send me an email, Chuck, CHUCK, at privatefamily, all one word, Chuck@privatefamilybank.com. Chuck@privatefamilybanking.com. That'll get me an email. Send me an email, and then I'll send you a calendar invite. I'll send you a free ebook to read and some other resources. I've got a free e-course that I just finished. It's brief, fantastic. About 20 minutes, but it'll really take everything we talked about briefly today, and I didn't dive down obviously into the detail, and I know doesn't necessarily the purpose of our podcast, but I love it. I love what we talked about today, and I believe in it. I mean, I can tell you, getting the book done was a big deal emotionally for me because it took one of those burdens off, right? And so, do the book, man. Do the book.
And now that you've got it, it almost frees up that brain space to look for all of those opportunities to use it. I often say that once that asset is created, the use cases, even if you go into the project with some good ideas, the use cases down the track, it's just an opportunity. It's something else to advance the conversation and reinforce the authority time after time whenever the opportunity arises. But that only comes from having it complete.
Absolutely.
One quick one just before we wrap up. I don't want to go off on another tangent, but I couldn't help but ask, you mentioned the online course, the email course that's just finished. Is that related to the book, or is that on a complementary subject?
It's on this subject, how to. It's a how to, what this is, and then how it works.
Right. And
that we call private family banking. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's such a fantastic opportunity to advance that conversation even further. So from the top of the funnel, people have a problem, here's a broad manifesto of a solution, down to, okay, here's some practical steps you can take if you're not quite ready to jump on a call yet.
Yep,
fantastic, complementary. Yeah, perfect. Well, again, thanks for your time, and particularly thanks for your time in between Christmas and New Year here. We'll release this in a couple of weeks, so it'll just be into the new year. So as anyone's kind of recovering from Christmas and thinking about doing something about their finances as January gets going, this hopefully will hit at the right time for them. And the email address, the way to get in touch with you, we'll make sure that it's in the show notes. So if people are watching on the website or on a podcast player, then
and I can send you a link too on my calendar if you want to put that in the show notes too.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, make it even easier for people. So anyone who's listening to this and is interested in finding out more, just check out the show notes and we'll put a link straight to Chuck's calendar in there.
Excellent.
Fantastic. Chuck, thank you so much. Looking forward to checking in with you again in 2024, see how things are going.
Oh, thank you, my friend. It's been a blessing to get to know you and your team, and they've been excellent, always on top of things. So I can't give you enough accolades there. It's been great.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. Always good to hear good stories like that. Well, everyone, thanks for listening as well. Here's wishing you a great new year, or hope you had a great new year when this goes live, and we will catch you all in the next one.